just blown away with the subject matter of today. It's my favorite subject matter. So they kind of pulled one on me here at the library last minute. I guess normally, well, the lady in charge who, you know, when I first set up stuff said that this is kind of a fishbowl, like I've said before. It kind of has like big windows. And so everybody going past can look in, and I've had people like look in and wave. So it's hard to concentrate. So the lady in charge said I could pull the shades down so that you couldn't see my face, because I guess they think I'm doing something horrible in here. So anyway, I don't know what they think I'm doing in here. But anyway, so some other new lady today came in and said, no, you have to have them all the way up. So I was like, really? So I just can't wait till the moment that I get my own space. I gotta say, I think that's gonna be a huge, a new challenge for sure, but I'm looking forward to that. I have new highlighters today, so I'm gonna have some new highlighters, and I have a scriptures that I'm gonna break in today, I think. So this is a scriptures that I bought a while ago, and I'm going to kind of break it in today, I think, I hope. So hopefully you have your scriptures, and you have a pen and paper to take some notes, and you have a highlighter, and a pen that you want to write in your scriptures with. And you know, this is such a huge subject that, you know, it may be that we don't get through it all today, which is totally fine, because we'll just keep talking about it. I love yellow, and I like light green for highlighting in my scriptures. Pink just kind of seems sometimes like it's too much. It just hides, it's too much sometimes, although I like it for like really, really important ones. Blue is too dark. So these are the two I like. Isaac and I went on a walk this morning, a hike. I'll show you. I have a picture of, we stopped and took some pictures of a horse. But we went for a beautiful hike this morning, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, the snow is melting. It's February. I mean, this is unheard of up here. Hey, there we go. A little bit. I got my hair done. I feel like Papa is restoring back to me things that we lost 7 years ago. I used to have blonde hair, whatnot. We went to the teepee, and it was such a hard life. I ended up going through menopause, and I got pretty gray. White was growing in a lot, and I couldn't afford going to the salon, so, you know, and it's not necessarily good for you anyway. So I started doing henna, and it turned it really, really dark, but I loved it for the time. It was good for my hair. Anyway, and so I did henna for a very long time, and then I had to let it grow out and stuff before I could touch it again, and with any sort of chemicals. And so just have been able to do that, and it just makes me feel good. So check this out. We used to have a Toyota 4Runner when we went to the mountains before, and then when we were in the mountains, and it really was, it was what we hauled everything with. It was wonderful, but it kind of just started dying. It just didn't have what it took to keep going. But it's us, you know, Toyota 4Runner, a Land Cruiser, that's us. It's kind of who we are, you know. Anyway, ended up dying, and then we've been kind of popping from little car to little car to junky car to junky car, because we couldn't afford anything, until we sold the teepee this last summer. And with some patience, we were looking for a car for a very long time to replace what we had lost many years ago and to be what we needed, and couldn't find anything. And we just kept being patient, you know, and we had never looked. We just couldn't find anything online, and we just kept looking and being patient. And finally one day, boom, there's our 4Runner again, like on steroids. So now it's beautiful, and it was something we could afford. I mean, I look at it all the time, and I'm like, oh my, he gave us back our 4Runner, you know, only this time it has like a stereo, it has great tires, it's lifted, it has like, it has a, what do you call that, rack on the, I mean, to haul stuff with. It's so nice, and he gave it back to us. So I feel like that's what he's doing. We have a huge thing to talk about today, and part of the reason that I'm gonna go here now, well, there's been this thing going around with, I'm gonna go ahead and mention, Jim Staley has written an article that was not combating, but trying to disprove the two-book theory two-book understanding that the scriptures actually lays out for us, and the book of the covenant versus the book of the law, and the Levitical priesthood versus the Melchizedek priesthood. So he put this 15-page article out there, and Matthew Nolan last Shabbat, actually in his talk, basically gave his response to it. So he took this 15-page paper and expanded it to 47-page. Basically, I don't know if combating is the right word, but basically explaining the covenant and stuff. So this is something that's very dear to my heart, and I will explain why in a little bit. But we need this. This priesthood is anointed. It is the priesthood. It is how it is the narrow path. It is the way, and without it, we're lost. And I really, really, really feel like that we need to understand this. I'm teaching it from a woman's perspective. I mean, I am a woman, so it's going to come from that perspective. But I'm also teaching it from the perspective that Isaac and I are the editors of Dr. David Perry's book, which is something we sat with for many, many, many years, soaking in the understanding of it. So we know it pretty well, I think, and understand it pretty well. And I just want to be an advocate for Yahshua. I think that we need to understand what his work actually accomplished and what we're called to do. So we're going to get started here in a little bit, but first let's do some preliminaries, okay? I have two prezzies today. This one is the first. We're going to, I don't know, scream through it's the right word. But of course, Shabbat Shalom, ladies of Teshuvah. Here we go. This is a picture of this morning. This is out where we live. This is Isaac on the neighbor's horse, but we went for a nice long hike this morning. So I, this last week, dealt with computer issues, number one, primarily computer issues for the first week, actually. So I had to talk to Apple to try to figure things out so that I knew where stuff was and I had room to do what I need to do. So I just kind of got all globbed down in a whole big old mess on my computer. So I had to do that. As soon as that was cleared up, I just, I got in real quick into the mikvah video that I needed to. I have about 4 or 5 vocab words to edit. They're already shot, but I need to edit, and I've had trouble editing them over the last couple of years because of the issues in my computer. I am not an organizer perfect. I'm not a perfect organizer, so that would be one of my flaws. I'm kind of like an artist, throw. So anyway, so I got that mikvah video out, and funny that I got it out and thought, okay, so I rebuilt it, which is what takes so much time. I have the other ones that I was just going to kind of dump in and hopefully get those out real quick, but now I can't find my mikvah video someplace, so I have to get back on with Apple. It's really not that bad. It's just when you're moving stuff from one computer to the next, it's kind of hard. So anyway, enough of that. And then I went on to do the feast calendar. So I needed to have stuff cleared up in the computer and be able to find actually photos from the last, my whole life, my adult life. I don't know, I'd lost them all. And I needed stuff reconnected so that I could do the feast calendar, and what I've wanted to do for a very long time. And I got this feast calendar done, and I am so excited for you guys to have access to it, the world to have access to it, because I really like it. I think it's perfect. It's of course I teach the Aviv barley and new moon, sighted moon understanding of how to reckon time, but this is a feast calendar. So Papa's calendar is the feasts, and how we reckon time to get there. That's kind of where we're all divided on, but we're not really. I don't think any of us are really divided on, how the feasts flow. Perhaps Shavuot might be an issue for some people, and maybe how to find a day. Hello. Anyway, but and I did different things. Maggie started college this last week, so I took her to a special tea before to celebrate, and then it's online, so she's still at home, but she started college, which was a big deal. We had a lot to figure out there. And Isaac's finishing trucking school as well, which was kind of a big deal. And we had trouble with mice again. Mice everywhere. So Shabbat dinner last week, Maggie made, what she made, Kadasa, she made brownies, They were sitting in the kitchen waiting for us to get done with dinner, and we go to get the brownies and saw a mouse like fly across the stove, the counter. We looked in the brownies, and there's this big hole gone in the middle of the brownies. So he'd been feasting on those. Oh, that didn't make Maggie very happy. Not at all. So anyway, that is what I've been doing for the last couple weeks. So I thank you guys for being patient, and we are back. We're going to do that again, because I think taking breaks is a good idea, and we'll see what we're going to do during the summer for sure. But I'm glad to be back. All right, so here, for those that don't know what this show is about, it's a show. My show is dedicated to moving your head knowledge to heart knowledge. Yes, so moving the what into the how. So I love this verse that I got. It's a new one right there. There we go. If you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments. Yes, so if you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. Gotta move, the idea is to move the head knowledge into heart knowledge, as well as I want to lighten this movement up. It's way too serious. I also want to give you permission to walk in this with delight and beauty and creativity. Someday I'll have graphics here, but for now, I don't. And I want to show you what repentance looks like on a woman. All right, your host is me, Rebekah Bat Yahovah. Look at that. I had dark hair. Where am I? Yeah, that was Isaac and me. It was summertime. It was I was outside a lot. I was tanning by the pool a lot. This was in Boise. But yes, I am Rebekah Bat Yahovah. And for those of you who don't know, I've been a wife for almost 20 years. I've been a mom for 18 years, a Melchizedek priest for 10 years, and I will talk about what I mean by that in a little bit. And I've been executive director of Yahshua Ministry for 5 years. For 5 years, we've had ministries before. But one fun fact about me that I wanted to I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about me as we go along with our relationship together, growing it. I'll just be open with you, and Hadass is laughing at me. I used to be in the aquatics industry, so I was an aquatics professional, if you want to say so, basically a lifeguard. WSI, so I used to teach lifeguarding, actually certify lifeguards, as well as teach swimming and all that stuff to little kids. I used to love it. So I've been a teacher a lot in different areas. Now I know what I want to teach, though. This is what I want to teach. But I performed 16 rescues in my 10-year career. Just a little thing about me. 16 rescues. Those are kind of fun to talk. Not fun. They're scary. I mean, they're good. They're good. 16. I can say I rescued 16 people from deep water, and maybe as I go walk into this, and I'll be doing that in a different way. All right. So deep thoughts with Rebekah. Here is where we're going to talk about some details. So I hope that you can bear with me here, but we got to talk about a few things. Oh, that was me at the Grand Canyon, by the way. Many years ago. Not many years ago. That was when we were on tour, so that was a few years ago. Okay, 8 very quick thoughts for today, because I want to get into the Melchizedek understanding. So here we go. Number 1. Okay, so there was some stuff that went on Facebook or in the group when I was gone, and that's totally cool. It could happen when I was there, happen when I'm there, it happened when I'm gone. It can happen in my face, it can happen behind me. It doesn't matter. Things happen. So I just want to go over a few things that I think are important. Number 1, questions are good. Absolutely. So I think that, as we have listened to people teach and all that stuff, no matter who they are, we should definitely be able to question and everything. What I have an issue with is how the questions are asked. Okay? So questioning is good, but how you question is what's important. Okay? So how you phrase it, how you come across, it can be good and it can be bad. So I'm going to walk through all 8 of these. I think I'll hit the points. I could go off on that, but let's just talk some more about this. So there's when you come into a situation where you're going to allow someone to teach you, there's a teacher-student relationship for a period of time. So it doesn't have to be outside the classroom. It doesn't have to, unless that's the way you want it. It doesn't have to be, your life. You're not surrendering everything to them. You're simply saying, for that moment, I'm going to let you teach me something. So it's for a time. It's for a season. just a couple of the things I want to talk about teacher-student relationship. For one, I know that we all answer directly to Yahshua. That's who the Kohen Gadol is right now, or right now, forever. He is the high priest in the order of Melchizedek, and so we all answer to him, absolutely. But he has sent teachers to Israel to teach this narrow way, and to reject those teachers, or to just do this horrible cross-examination in a way that just tears them apart I don't think he's gonna be too happy with that. So there are people who we know of who have special anointings. So I think he sends teachers with special messages, with special anointings. That doesn't mean that teacher knows everything. The only one that knows everything is Yahshua, Yehovah Elohim Barak. I mean, the family knows everything. We don't, but he gives certain people within Israel messages for Israel. So I believe in anointings, and in that anointing as a teacher, that teacher is a servant to the students. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the teacher actually is a servant, because the teacher's goal, a good teacher's goal, is to try to communicate well, try to communicate the message, the understanding that they have well, and in doing that you become a servant, because you're trying to figure out how, So, and there's some respect that we owe teachers with anointings who are sent from Yahshua, and you can know that they're sent or know that they're not. I mean, it doesn't take very long to figure out, if you know your scriptures and you've been walking in this path, you can see whether they are or aren't. And you can tell when they're anointed with something and when they're going beyond their anointing, And so, Michael Rood is anointed to talk about the feasts of the Lord. He's anointed to talk about calendar. You just know it. And but other things, he doesn't get the Melchizedek priesthood. There's other things he doesn't get yet. Nolan is anointed to talk on the Melchizedek priesthood. He's not to talk about the calendar. I mean, it's very clear what his anointing is, and to stay with him on that and allow him to speak into your life. Oh man, it was a great the Shabbat service he gave last week. John Eldridge is anointed to talk about the heart. He knows the heart so well, and the idea of a bigger picture, looking at the scriptures as a story. So he doesn't understand some of the details of it, but he sees the story and he understands the heart. So if I need to understand how the heart works, I go to Eldridge. Okay, John Eldridge, Nehemiah Gordon, my goodness, he understands the Hebrew. He is a scholar. He's been spending his whole life studying Hebrew. He's sought after to understand some of the Hebrew texts and stuff. So, and calendar, he's the one that spent a long time, I don't know, what is it, 20 years or 25 years looking at the word Aviv and trying to figure out how to restore that in the land of Israel, as well as, Skip Moen. He understands the Ezer Kenegdo. And so what I'm saying is that there's a teacher-student relationship that we need to respect. Now you just filter and disregard what they don't understand and accept what they do understand. This is what you do with all teachers, okay? All right, so number 3, this group is not an open study group like others. Okay, so I may have to go back into the post I'm having everybody read and agree to, but I just want you to know this group is different. Ladies of Teshuvah, I did not start it to be a study group where we're all hashing something out. I created it for different reasons. So if you want to go to a group, you want a group where you can hash out and you can, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to call it, because I see too much meanness in groups like that. So, but it's not an open study group, okay? So questions are good, but it's not open for the kind of openness that other groups have. I just hope you understand what I'm talking there, because I want it to be safe for you, and I want it to be safe for me. All right. So as a teacher, I want to feel like those moments where I'm teaching, okay? I'm not teaching all the time. There's a leadership kind of commission that happens when you assume a teacher's task for a moment in time or whatever it be. So, but I want to be safe, and so posts, tags, rude comments, preying on members, people who undermine my message, I have zero tolerance for anymore. Sorry, but I really do. I am done. I am so done with rude people, so it will be deleted, and so will they. So I'm just making sure that you guys know that I am here to make boundaries and to protect you. I really want this to be a safe group and good for your heart and my heart as well, okay? So I may not do everything perfect, and you may find fault with me, but I'm growing myself in this idea of what I'm trying to accomplish. But I am very sick of mean people and in this movement, and I think that we need to be called up into bigger and better things, all right? So number 4, unhealthy communication. In our skepticism, we are mean. So the questioning, like I was talking about, the questioning, it's not in the question itself, it's in the how you ask. So if you're going to look at someone who's trying to give a message, and the first thing you think of is skepticism, and I understand that we all have been through so much, as in we've been lied to so much, that we're really skeptical of anybody having a teaching or understanding or a thought on something. So we're going to be skeptical, but you know what? You got to control that somehow, because the skepticism really, really hurts people. And you don't know. I mean, Yahshua has been sending people to Israel and to kind of nail them to the wall. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of that one. So positioning, I have people, what I call positioning themselves. So they're going to position themselves here above you, kind of thing, and in their comments, so they're going to come across as kind of self-righteous and know-it-all in this kind of thing, when they have no idea who you are, they have no idea how much you studied, and it's all in the how. Remember, the disrespect blows me away. I got a letter from a 12-year-old that tore me apart. A 12-year-old, and I was like, okay, so for one, disrespect just for the fact that I'm your elder, and for another, where's the parents that allow this? I don't know. It was pretty nasty. Anyway, and then there's this idea of watching each other. So I'm going to be I'm the person on the tower. I'm the, what do you call that? The guard on the tower. So I'm going to watch and just make sure that you don't get out of line. I mean, that's like surveillance. Okay, so do we have to do that to each other? Really, where's the freedom? I don't know. There's something really wrong with this, watching each other for error instead of watching each other for alignment success is what I call it. Watchman, thank you. Watch girl, watch woman. But the idea of, why aren't we spending time watching for alignment success? So when somebody is aligning a part of their lives to Yahshua successfully, that's where we should be throwing a party for each other, not not spending our time watching everybody else's movements to when they're going to make a mistake, and then nailing them on that, thinking that you're more righteous than them, coming across in this positioning attitude. So it's unhealthy. And then, disrespect for the anointing somebody's been given, and not allowing for the individual journey. We are all on individual journeys, are we not? So where's the love? Where's the mercy? So pagans show more love for each other, in my opinion. Sometimes, that's a true statement. I definitely feel that, and it could be because there's the tolerance thing or whatnot, but I definitely feel it's hard to feel the love in this movement. And I know there's a lot of ladies on here that I'm excited for, because I think there's love in your hearts. I really, really do. I think you're aligned well, and I'm excited to have you as my friends, to call you my friends. All right, so then earning the right. This is huge, because this is where you have to earn the right to speak into somebody's life. All right, so this just blows me away. So if somebody wants to correct another person, you need to earn the right to do that. That's what I feel like a lot of people in this movement, and when I say this movement, I'm just talking about the movement out in scattered Israel. I'm talking about, everybody in exile now being called out. I feel like, everybody thinks they're a teacher. Everybody thinks they have the right to, correct each other, in this real rude way, whether you're friends or not. So friendship takes time. And that's something that you don't get if all of a sudden you find out that, hey, the person down the road or in the next neighborhood, they celebrate Shabbat, so come on over to my house and we're going to sit on my couch every Shabbat after this. I mean, that is a recipe for disaster, people, because you don't know them. And what happens is they're going to sit on your couch for a long time, week after week after week, and they're going to feel some rights to speak into your life that they don't have yet. They don't have it. You have to, right? You have to spend time with people, right? Make friendships. Yeah. You can come sit over here if you want. Anyway, let's go. It takes respect. It takes honor. It takes a solid foundation of a friendship in order to handle something heavy. All right. So anyway, earn the right. So, and then number 6, the mature. Okay, so the mature believer, the mature seeker, the mature priest, if you want to say it, understands how the heart works. And I can't say this enough, because if you don't understand how the heart works, then you're not going to be able to effectively speak into somebody's life. You're not going to be effective in loving another person. You're not going to be effective in sharing or gleaning or taking or living in this circle of love. I mean, love is other-centered by definition. So it's this give and receive sort of relationship. And in your receiving, the most important place you're receiving is in the heart. So whatever you speak comes through the head into the heart. And, I just really feel like there's very, very few mature people in Israel. But I would really like to help train and help bring people up into some maturity here. And so we can get on to some other topics and love each other instead of kind of wallowing in this mess. And I have no interest in it. I have had so many experiences in all of these 8, all of these things that I'm talking about right now. I just gave you a couple examples. I was teaching one time in our home. We had been inviting many people anyway, and we had some friends show up, and I got to the point where we were talking about the Ruach HaKodesh living in our heart, the indwelling, the new covenant being written on our heart, and they were Hebrew roots Messianic people, and they literally in our own home we're talking, there was less than 20 people there. It was a real tight situation, so we knew who was coming and going. They decided to get up in the middle of my sentence because they didn't believe that the new covenant was now. I thought it was a Messianic or a future thing. When Yahshua comes back the second time. And they literally got up in the middle and left. I mean, how rude. I've had people throw me under the bus and during a hard time at the teepee and in desperation of needing prayer, getting in a hutch with them to pray, and being in the hospital with Isaac at midnight, getting a text from that person saying, now remember, I didn't change my mind about what I was saying. It's just crazy, stupid stuff. So, okay, classroom etiquette. So this is something when we do feast time, I have to actually give a little etiquette lesson as we feast time, because I've had people kind of, not understand how a feast works, how a social situation should work, which kind of blows my mind. I don't understand why it's not clear. But anyway, so classroom etiquette, you don't have to come back. You don't like what I'm teaching, you don't have to come back. But at this moment, we've got a classroom setting. So I'm a teacher, you're the student, fabulous, you want to be the teacher, I would love to come to your show. So, now's not the time to be in the feed, going blah, 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 and undermining what I'm talking about, which you don't. None of you right now who are on are like this. I'm just covering some stuff that feel I need to this week. So here's the problem, and this is what Isaac and I were talking about last night. The problem is that Yeshua's not here yet. No. Because if Yeshua was here in person, in the flesh, which he will be someday, to run this thing, we wouldn't have any of this problem, because the buck would stop with him. And I can't wait for that moment. That is going to be freedom, immense freedom, because the leader of this, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol of the Melchizedek priesthood, is going to have his throne. He's going to reign, and everything is going to, he's the judge. It's going to end with him. He will judge between us. He will assign things. It's like when Yehovah, shouted down from the mountain, making everyone know that he had chosen Moses. I mean, how wonderful was that? I mean, Moses didn't have to fight for his position, right? He knew it was his, but he didn't have to fight for it. Yeshua is going to do the same sort of thing for people that he wants to do certain things. I think it's going to be awesome. And so it's going to solve all the pain, all the frustration, and it's going to weed out, the weeds from the wheat, tares from the wheat, whatever. But I also believe that we're not doing this as well as we could, because we're not understanding the Melchizedek priesthood and what it is and how to operate in it. Okay? All right, so get a paper and pen. I got a few announcements for you. We're going to go run through these really, really quick announcements. All right, the biblical feast calendar is here. And I know it's Shabbat. I'm not trying to sell stuff on Shabbat, but this is good. This is what you need to help you throughout the feast coming up for the year. So it's going to keep you on track and on rhythm with Papa. So tonight after sunset, tomorrow, you can go find this. I'll put the links in there tomorrow morning, so you can go find this. Yeah, is that you?
Yeah.
This is Hadassah right here, going up to our teepee. So we lived let's see, where were we? How is that? Like over in here. I think the mountains keep going up. So our teepee was up in that area. We'll do that. Definitely subscribe to our newsletter. You can go to our website and do that. And then to our YouTube channel. It's pretty cool. It's climbing, but I just got to get more videos on. Also, you can become a patron and support me. At this point, ladies who are my patrons, I have got to rethink, I think, the rewards a little bit, because I'm struggling so hard right now with technology and stuff. So my podcasts aren't going to happen for a little bit. I'm still trying to figure all that out, and then get enough money to be able to afford the equipment to do that. So anyway, just thank you for your support. So if you haven't become a patron, you can do that for offering if you want to give. All right, let's go through we're going to invite Yehovah's Ruach HaKodesh. For those of you who don't know, it's Yehovah Elohim, which is the Father. Ruach HaKodesh is his spirit, his set-apart spirit is what it means. And we're just going to read and do the Avenu prayer, which is the Lord's Prayer. All right, for those of you who don't know, this is Hebrew. It's the transliteration of the actual Hebrew. So in this program, for some reason, I haven't figured out how to put the Hebrew letters, and this is in Nehemiah Gordon and Keith Johnson's book. It's in the back of the book, and this is where I got it. But anyway, so our Father in heaven, this is how the prayer goes. Our Father in heaven, this is the prayer that Yeshua taught us to pray, right? Our Father in heaven, Avinu Shabasha Mayim. Can you say it? Can you say it?
Yeah.
Avinu Shabasha Mayim. No, we're not there yet. Right. Avinu Shabasha Mayim, Yit Kadesh Shimcha. May your name be sanctified. Yit Kadesh Shimcha. Vayit Barak Melchutha. May your kingdom be blessed. May your kingdom be blessed. Vayit Barak Melchutha. Retzoncha Yiheye Esui. Basha Mayim Uva-Aretz. Let's do that again. Retzoncha Yiheye Esui. Basha Mayim Uva-Aretz. When we were in Israel, the way they talked, the native speakers, I guess is what you call, they said things so fast that I didn't understand. So, for me, I'm not a native Hebrew speaker, so I got to break it down. So if I said this to somebody out there, probably going, could you say it any slower? Anyway, Retzoncha Yiheye Esvi Bashamayim Uv-Aretz. Your will shall be done in heaven and on earth. All right. V'titein lach menu timidit. Give us our bread continually. V'titein lach menu timidit. Umechol lanu ka'apolteinu ka'ashir. So forgive the debt of our sins. Umechol lanu chatotenu. Let's see. Chatotenu. There you go. Chatotenu ka'ashir. Ka'ashir. Anachnu mohalim. I love the mohalim. And for some reason, I say that every time. Anachnu mohalim lachotim lanu. As we forgive the debts of those who sin against us or who wrong us. Anachnu mohalim lachotim lanu. Vial TV inu. So vial TV inu. Vial TV inu. L'day nizon. L'day nizon. Do not bring us into the hands of a test. It's like, please, no more testing. I think that was my prayer at the TP all the time. Vial TV inu. V'inu, l'day nizon. I'm not an expert in this by any means. We're just learning. All right, protect us from all evil. V'sham rinu mikora. V'sham rinu mikora. And that is where the prayer ends. So the doxology part on the end isn't actually in that prayer that Yahshua taught us to pray. So we're to sanctify the name. Again, this is the book that I got that from. To sanctify his name 3 ways. You speak it. You praise it, you bless it, and you do good deeds in his name, showing his character. So I like to tell stories about how Yehovah, what he has done, what good deeds he has done for us. So in the files, in the left-hand side of the Facebook group, you'll see a file there that you can go and write your story out, because I want to help women learn to sanctify the name. And part of that is to remember for us how good he is, because we forget. John Eldridge says we are the king and queens of forgetters, right? So we need to help remembering. And I think that's why Yehovah said over and over and over, remember the feast days, remember what I did for you, because there's going to be a time when it's going to feel like I'm not there, but I am there, and remember me, don't forget me. So that's why I feel like sanctifying the name out loud is so super important. It's one thing to say it, which I say it a lot. It's another thing to write it and to know the name by which you are saved. And then it's also another thing to do the things that he asked us to do and do them in his name, so that people can praise him because they see his good works in you. But it's another thing to actually bless it, and we bless it by saying, wow, the name of Yehovah came through for me here, and I'm going to remember. Oh, I love it. Exodus 9:16, and in every good deed for this cause I've raised you up for you to show in you my power, and that my name, his character, may be declared or sanctified throughout the entire earth. All right. This is called the Scrapbook Bible. This is what I named this. So this is my Scrapbook Bible. Look how thick it is, almost on every single page. See if I can show you. I have, and so bring your kids into the room right now. If they can't see me, bring them in, and because this is for them, if anything. This is how I learned to read my scriptures. A long time ago, when I was in my 20s, I worked at summer camp, and I had this Bible. I think my parents bought it for me because it has my name on the bottom, my maiden name. And I was at summer camp, and I was falling in love with, frankly, a lot of people. It was a new experience for me because I had so many new wonderful people around me 24/7 all summer long, and my heart was falling in love with these wonderful people. And then I went to college and had roommates and just tons of friends that they were changing my life. I really just was embracing this new life, away from mom and dad kind of thing. And I had all these people that my world just exploded. It just got really big. And so here's a great shot of me and a group of friends. So I was like, I've always been for Yehovah. I've always loved the King. I've always loved the scriptures, and I was born just strange, unique, not strange, but I think I was born a little always focused there on the kingdom. So I wanted to figure out how to bless my new friends. So what I did was I knew only so many verses, and I wanted to dedicate a verse to each person. So when I ran out of verses, see, what I did was I would take, let's see if I can find a good one. Oh, here's one of my best friends. Her name's Holly. There's when we were young. So I would, Holly, I want to dedicate a verse to her. So I would find the verse that I knew, tape the picture into it, and put the verse on the back. And pretty soon I ran out of verses. I didn't know my whole script, didn't have it memorized, so I had to read. So I would read, and then I would say, oh, this would be a great verse for, this friend or whatnot. And, oh, there's a great verse for this friend or that friend, So in the end, I have almost a picture on every single page. Now, when Isaac and I got married, we traded this scriptures for a new one. So I had two Bible boys. One came down. Now I know that the wedding ceremony is pagan, but at that time I didn't know it. But anyway, I had two Bible boys, and one came down with this one. It used to be tied with some bark from a trip I did to Malaysia. So I got bark off of a tree. It was called iron tree in Malaysia. And it used to be tied with iron bark together. So the little boy carried this down to and then another little boy carried the new Bible, because this one has old boyfriends in it. And I guess I didn't want to, well, of course, I was getting married, so it's going to be a new chapter, a new phase in my life. So there is my idea for you. This is... So, a new idea, a new way for you kids, your kids to engage with the scriptures in a way that's going to be real. And, funny, I would take this to campfire at night while I worked at summer camp. And I had tape, a little basket. I had tape, and I had highlighter, and I had a pen and pictures. And I would get to the campfire bowl to sit in the back. I was waterfront director, so I wasn't always a counselor, so I could sit in the back and I could work on this, right? No, because as soon as I brought it out, everybody would be like, oh, let me see. And the scriptures would end up going down the row, and I never got to work on it at campfire. So anyway, there is my scrapbook Bible. Someday, I want to take this idea and put it into a form where there's instructions, and where I can give it to kids or sell it or whatnot. So, because I think it's pretty cool idea. It's definitely a way to read your scriptures. All right, so here we go. Now today, I don't know if I guess you can't see that. It says the Melchizedek. Today, I am not going to be interviewing a lady, doing a split screen, because we have so much to cover on this subject of the Melchizedek order, priesthood, connection. So I don't know. I'm sure that a lot of you have heard of Melchizedek and understand who Melchizedek was, but we're going to just get a little refreshment here. So we have Abraham getting blessed by the Melchizedek, and the bread and the wine that the Melchizedek brought to Abraham to show him how to do this, or to just break bread with him. And then Abraham gave the Melchizedek a tenth of everything of the spoils. So let's go look at the story just for a second. So here's the story, which I don't know if you can read, but after Abram returned from defeating, and I have no idea how to say that, Kedora Laomer, I think. And the kings allied with him. The king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh. That is the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of Elohim Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by Elohim Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praise be to Elohim Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hands. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, give me the people and the goods, keep the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, with raised hand I have sworn an oath to Yehovah Elohim Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you. Abraham and the Melchizedek understood which Elohim they were talking about, because you see, Abraham doesn't actually say he just uses the title of Yehovah Elohim when he's talking to the Melchizedek. King of Sodom, when Abraham addresses the king of Sodom, he's very, very clear on which Elohim he's talking about, because he names the Elohim. This is why it's so important to say the name of Yehovah when you're talking about an Elohim, because Elohim is just it means gods. It's Elohim is plural. Means God. Elohim means plural gods. It's a plurality kind of thing. So when the scriptures say Yehovah Elohim, is talking about all three of them: Yehovah the Father, the Son, and the Ruach. So when you're talking to someone who doesn't understand and live in the same understanding as you, you have to be very clear and say the name of that Elohim that you're talking about. You notice that King of Sodom is not walking in the same path that Abraham is, so he's being Abram's being very clear about which Elohim he's talking about. But notice that the Melchizedek and Abram, they're on the same page. They don't need to say the name. It's like I can talk to you and I can say Elohim and you know who I'm talking about. But if I'm talking to a pagan, I'm very careful to say Yehovah Elohim. So I think that's a really interesting thing when you see this text. Okay, so Shaul teaches about this moment when Melchizedek and Abram meet. For this, in Hebrews 7:1-3, he says, for this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of Most High Elohim, met Abraham, returning from the slaughter of the kings, and blessed him. And to him Abraham apportioned a 10th part of everything. He is, first, by translation of his name, King of Righteousness. So there we know this Melchizedek is a king, and he's a king of righteousness. And then he is also king of Salem. That is king of peace. So we know that Salem means peace. He is without father or mother or genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but resembling the son of Elohim. He continues a priest forever. Okay, so what we have here is, it is not Yahshua, all right? That the Melchizedek priest that came to meet Abraham was not Yahshua. Paul makes it very clear. He was like Yahshua. So just kind of stop for a second. When you understand the Melchizedek priesthood, the Melchizedek priests are going to be like who? Yeah, they're going to be like Messiah. They're going to be like Yahshua. They're going to resemble Yahshua. Isn't that the whole reason we eat of him? The drink of him, get him in us. I mean, this is the whole point of unleavened bread, right? Hag Hamatzah in the spring, right after Pesach, is about eating of Yahshua to get him in us, so that we begin to resemble him, right? So that this is part of how the priesthood works. All right, Melchizedek is greater than Aaron. So one of Shaul or Paul's main points in his writings in the New Testament, or in the Brit Hadashah, especially in Hebrews, is he's trying to make a point that Melchizedek is superior to the Aaronic order. So Shaul's main point of his letter to the Hebrews in Diaspora, and this is where he was speaking to the scattered Israel that was outside, they were wanting to come in. He is trying to prove that he does prove that Melchizedek is greater than Aaron. He is greater because Yahshua is of the order of Melchizedek, not of Aaron. He couldn't be a Levite priest if he wanted to be. Yahshua is of a different priestly order than that of Aaron, because then there is a necessity of change in the law. So in Hebrews 7:12, we're going to talk about this some more later, but it says that when there's a change in priests, then there's a necessary change in law. Well, you have Aaron and the Aaronic order, which is the Levites, and you have Yahshua, totally different tribe, not from not from the line of Aaron. He's not from the tribe of Levi. He's from another one, and which Moses didn't speak of when it had to do with priests. And when there is a change from one order to the next, there's also a change in law. So we're going to rightly divide the word of truth to figure out what this change is and which law we're talking about. Okay, Psalms 110:4 says, Yehovah has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. So Yehovah was talking to Yahshua prophetically through King David to say that what was going to happen. It was a prophecy of what was going to happen. That Yehovah was going to raise up his son in the order of the Melchizedek, which is the king of righteousness. That's Yehovah. And he's going to be a priest forever because the Melchizedek order is forever because it is Yehovah's and Yehovah is forever. Okay, we're going to get there. All right, so one thing that we can learn a lot about Melchizedek by studying the name. So we look at Melchizedek means king of righteousness. King of Salem means king of peace. So we're going to study the name in the context of where we first see the name appear, which is in the account with Abraham and meeting the Melchizedek priest, and then what Shaul talks about in Hebrews. So 5 insights into the Melchizedek. 5 insights into the Melchizedek. Number 1, the priesthood of Melchizedek is one of royalty. So he was a king. So it's a priesthood of royalty. It is a priesthood of righteousness. He was Yehovah's priest, and true righteousness only comes from Yehovah. All right. It was a priesthood of peace. So it's a priesthood. It's a kingly priesthood. It is a righteous priesthood. It is a peaceful priesthood. It's kingdom of priesthood of peace. Salem, because Salem means peace, and peace is a natural result of righteousness, of right doings. Peace, right? I think that's what we all want. Is like we want peace, and in order to have peace, Papa knows how to have peace, and it's by doing things according to him. All right, and then the Melchizedek priesthood was based on his personal qualification, not his genealogical line. I don't quite know how to say that, but not by his genealogy. So you see in the Tanakh over and over, you see genealogies. There's a ton of genealogies, and if you were part of the Levitical priesthood, the tribe. Levites and stuff, you were supposed to keep a genealogy so that you could serve at the temple as a priest kind of thing. But Yeshua's priesthood, this royal Melchizedek priesthood, isn't based on genealogy. It's based on his personal qualification. And you see how Shaul clears that up in Hebrews. I won't get to that in a little bit, but Shaul makes it very clear that it wasn't because of Yeshua's genealogy that gave him this priesthood, that Yehovah gave him this priesthood. It was because of who he was and how he qualified to be that priest, the high priest in the order of Melchizedek. So it is also, and lastly, number 5, it is an eternal priesthood, as the understanding in verse 3 there says that it was an eternal priesthood having neither beginning of days nor end of life. And it's talking about the priest part, not the human part. Oh, that's something I'm going to do. I've got to add later. All right, so I'm going to actually try for the next hour. So we're going to unpack the change provided in the Torah for the Melchizedek priesthood to arrive, and this change, how this works. Not just arrive. It was then. Well, it's always been. Okay, it's always been. That's what we operated in, and then because of covenant breach, we got more law, and then Yeshua came to do away, and then we're back in under just the Melchizedek understanding. So this is a change that's provided for in Torah, and I'm going to show you how that works. The secret, Psalms 25:14 says, the secret of Yehovah is for those who fear him, and he will make them know his covenant. The secret of Yehovah is for those who fear him, and he will make them know his covenant. And so many times in the Tanakh, I think I've counted 3 or 4, where it says it's his covenant of love. I've unpacked that for myself. I find it stunning. The covenant of love is what he is going to make known to those who fear him, the people who care more about what he thinks than what about everyone else thinks. So if you care what the Messianic crowd thinks, you care more about what they think over what Yahweh thinks, then you're in a bad situation, all right? Because what you want is you want to be his friend. You want to be Yahweh's friend. You want to care about more about what he thinks than what man thinks. So we're going to look at the change that he and Yahshua and the Ruach HaKodesh worked very hard to make for us this way. It is the way. All right, I want you to know that my teacher in this area has been Dr. David Perry. But I want you to know that prior to meeting Dr. David Perry, I basically went through a time when things were not adding up, and I just said, okay, I'm going to start from the beginning of the scriptures, and I'm going to read it for myself and go straight through. And I would read, and I would write on the side, in my margin, what is this about, blah, blah, blah. Some things I still don't quite understand, but I was just reading straight through. And I basically wanted to say, or basically what I'm saying was, what do you want me to do, Papa? Because life is hard. Life is really hard. And I want to know what it is you want me to do to get the blessings that you have promised, because life's too hard without those blessings. So I'll do anything. So show me. So I got to Exodus 19, and I saw something very dramatic. I saw them enter into something, a covenant. They were making this covenant. And at Exodus 24, I saw them ratify it, and I saw it as a complete package. Like it was right there. Exodus 19 through 24. I was like, wow. And I was like, I can do that. There's no sacrifices in it. I could keep the whole thing. Like it was kind of a no-brainer. So I saw this and started like living in that alone and unpacking, learning this, that, and the other just by reading. But it wasn't until Dr. David Perry sat on our couch in 2010? I think it was 2010. He sat on our couch and handed me a CD with his dissertation on the Book of the Covenant versus Book of the Law, the Melchizedek Priesthood, and I had no idea. I didn't have words for it. I didn't know what it was called. I just saw this covenant, and I saw the blessings attached with it, and I saw a promise made by Yahweh, and I knew that Yahweh doesn't change, and I wanted those blessings, and I would do anything, and I wanted to know what it was I was supposed to obey. Because I knew that the Ruach was going to write his law in our heart, and I wanted to know what law that was. And I wasn't about to go down the Messianic road because I knew I couldn't keep all the law as far as the Messianics are considered, and Judaism is. It's impossible. It's literally impossible to be Torah observant. If you say you're Torah observant, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, you're not. Because if you're Torah observant, it means that you're keeping all the laws, as in all the sacrifices. And there has to be something else. Something happened when Yahshua came and did what he did. Something wonderful happened, and I saw it. And so anyway, Dr. David Perry helped put words to it, and Isaac and I ended up editing his book. So we got to sit in this for many years, just soaking in this understanding. All right. So what I want you to do is take your scriptures, and I don't know if you all know how to cross-reference, but cross-referencing is pretty cool because it helps you see a path through the scriptures for whatever subject, whatever topical subject that you want to learn or study or document, so that you can just go right to it, and then you can see this path. So basically, you're going to find a blank page. So this is a brand new Bible to me in the sense of I haven't really read it very much, and I haven't marked it up. I have other Bibles that I've done that with. But we're going to just cross-reference a little bit, but it may be that we'll get to that in a later one. But basically what I want to do here is I want to look at some dedicated phrases, what I'm calling dedicated phrases. It's not just me that calls it that. I think David Perry calls it like that. I think Nolan called it something like that. Okay, So you're going to write down on a blank part of your scriptures, but we're going to look at some dedicated phrases and write those down as we look at this story, the story of the change. Yeah. Okay. So, oh, you can't see, but I have the narrow path written up there. The narrow path. And this is kind of, you know, just mountains, steep mountains, and there's a road that kind of winds around through these mountains. And if in my imagination, I'm thinking big old beautiful New Jerusalem over there, big old beautiful, you know, happily ever after, right over there, right? And we're going to get from here to there. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. All right, so this, I have up there the words holy ground because I wanted to remember to just mention that this is really holy ground. I really feel that when we're talking about something so that Yehovah Elohim has fought for and made a way for us, it is holy ground. It totally is. It's beautiful, and I don't take it lightly. I remember when I was editing the book in the early morning hours, and I would edit. Isaac and I would edit paragraph by paragraph, just trying to make sure that we didn't change the meaning, that we understood what Dr. David Perry was trying to say, because we were trying to take this real kind of like very theological language and bring it down to something that was easy to read. So he had this dissertation that was pretty intense, and we wanted to make it so that the average person could understand it. Me, pretty much. I was like, David, I can't understand this. Will you bring it down? So anyway, finally gave me a manuscript that we could begin to work with. But when I would tell Isaac all the time is that I feel like I'm on holy ground when I was touching these paragraphs, because I really felt like it was crucial to get this right. And I was seeing this amazing unfolding before my eyes, and so I really took it gently, courageously but gently, but really felt like I was on holy ground. So I just want you to know that I feel like we're going into holy ground right now to talk about this. Not that my graphics are the greatest or anything like that, but that the subject matter is definitely something to be reverent about. I guess if there's such a position or attitude to take. All right, so the change or realized hope sanctioned in Torah that removes the imposed Levitical priesthood, or the BOL, is, as David says, the BOL is the book of the law, BOC is book of the covenant. Okay, so the narrow path is this incredible Melchizedek priesthood, but it's the change or realized hope sanctioned in Torah that removes the imposed Levitical priesthood to reestablish Yehovah's Melchizedek priesthood intent. All right. Okay. So a brief overview of this change. So where I really want to get to today is right here, and this is where how it operates, how the priesthood operates. But first, I'm going to take you through a quick overview of the story. And as you can see, we have the first contract right here. I'm going to call them contracts, and you'll understand why when we get down the path a little bit. But I'm going to call the first time that Israel was at the base of Mount Sinai, that was a contract. They were making a contract. Okay, so covenant, it was a covenant, absolutely. But so much of the time we get covenant kind of confused with other covenants in the scripture. So I like to refer to it as contract, because there's two contracts that are Melchizedek. So first we have the Melchizedek contract right here. Then they have the contract breach with the golden calf incident. Then they get more imposed law, the Levitical, which is not covenant. It's extra imposed law. But you have the prophecy of the new covenant, new contract coming. Then you have Yahshua fulfilling the whole thing and the change in priesthood. And then the second Melchizedek contract comes with the work of Yahshua. So I'm going to kind of take you through here. First, though, we are going to look at the scriptural witnesses for a change. So you're going to have all these slides you can look at. And you know what? It took me 3 or 4 days to do this. And I know that it needs more work. Absolutely. I've got things to add to it, to take away. I want to make it more, how do I say? I'm a very graphic-oriented person. So I want to take this, and what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to make it so that I can give you the link to this, and then you can teach from it. Okay, so you're going to actually have access to this when I'm completely done with it, and you can tap through it, and you can teach people. So you'll be able to walk people through this. I think that it's a teaching tool that I want to give you. I want to show you something before I go on. Something that I spent hundreds of hours doing. So Hadassah, are you sleeping? Come here. Come help me. So this is a 144-inch graph. Here, I'll just roll it, Hadassah. You just keep it going. It's a 144-inch graph that goes over the change. It's very graphic-oriented as far as there's a lot of graphics in here. I think it comes in the Shavuot packet, and it's at Shavuot time. We're going to go over it in more depth. But it talks about what was before the fall, and then at the fall, it works you through, how the Melchizedek Priesthood worked prior to the Abrahamic covenant, promise of Genesis 15. It goes over the oath, the promise, and the oath and the promise, and the answer to the promise. This is all terminology that took me a long time to understand from Dr. David Perry, but it walks you through the covenant making that Abraham did with Yahshua and Yehovah. Remember when they walked through the pieces, or they walked through the pieces? Yahshua walked through on Abraham's behalf as the flaming torch. There were two that went through. It was Yehovah, the furnace, and Yahshua, who was a flaming torch. And he went through on behalf of Abraham's descendants, because he knew that Abraham's descendants were going to break the covenant that they were making. And the answer to that covenant was the Melchizedek contract that they were making at the very beginning. Okay, so it goes through, and then what happened? The contract got broken with the golden calf incident, and how Levitical priesthood became. Do you see this bridge? This is a temporary bridge from one contract to the other. So you have do you see Hadassah's over there? Yeah, good, Hadassah. So you have the first contract to the second contract. The Levitical priesthood and law was a bridge between the two. All right, it was temporary. It was like Plan B. So it takes you through the Levitical priesthood and what being the Levitical law was placed on the outside of the Ark of the Covenant as a witness against them. This sort of thing. We're going to talk about this in a minute, but I just thought I'd show you the graph. It's 144 pages. It took me hundreds of hours to work on this, to do this. So then we have the superior contract, Yahshua, our high priest, and our king. Oh, thank you, Hadassah. And then how the priesthood looks now, as far as, we are moved by the Ruach HaKodesh, and we are a nation of priests, which was the original intent of Yehovah. How important the heart is. And then Paradise Restored. You see Paradise Restored? Oh, yes. Love. I'm romantic at heart. Yay. All the way to the beginning. Thank you, Hadassah. Here, can you take this for me? I know that was kind of noisy, but that took hundreds of hours to do that. So I will put this together for you so you can actually take it and present it to your friends, families, and look in here. All right, let's go forward. We're going to look at the clause that gives us the right to actually look at or how to divide this. We're going to look at the until clause. And the until clause. This is a legal clause in the Torah revealed in the Brit Hadashah, which is the New Covenant. So it's a clause in the Torah revealed in the New Testament that prophesies of and sanctions a future change that the work of Messiah would enact. Okay, so Yeshua's sacrifice enacted this change, or what his work accomplished, the until clause. So, of course, we need 2 witnesses, and to be able to call something true, Deuteronomy 19:15 and 2 Corinthians 13:1 tell us we need 2 witnesses. So and I actually found 4 just right off the bat. I kind of think there's more, but the 2 witnesses, we'll have 4 here. Genesis 49:10 says, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. And unto him shall the obedience of the people be." Now this is the golden thing in this whole study here. This is the golden part. Until Shiloh come. Shiloh is a reference to the Messiah. It is found only 1 time in the entire scriptures, and it is its proper name, and it means he whose it is, or that which belonged to him. So until Shiloh comes, so it all belongs to Yeshua. But right now it's going to be here until Yeshua comes, until Shiloh comes, until the Messiah comes. So this is Torah, people. Genesis 49:10 is Torah, and you see the change that is provided for, a change that is prophesied in Torah that is going to come. Until means this is how we're going to do it until this happens, and then we're going to do it this way. So here is the golden clause, the Genesis 49:10 in Torah, until Shiloh comes. So we got to figure out, what happened when Shiloh came. That is the big question. What happened? Okay, Ezekiel 21:27. It will not be restored until he comes to whom it rightfully belongs. To him, I, Yahovah, will give it. He's talking about what he's going to give to his son. And I believe in context, there's talking about Jerusalem and some other things. But the idea is, who does it belong to? This belongs to Yeshua, and Yahovah is going to give it to him. But it will not be restored until he comes, which he came the first time, right? There's a lot of things that aren't going to be given to him until he comes again, right? He's not going to get to take Hasatan out, or he's not going to get to do a lot of things he wants to do yet until he comes again. So things are the way they are right now until he comes, and then they're going to be different. All right, Acts 3:21, until the times of restitution of all things, as he promised long ago through his holy prophets. For Moses said, Yehovah, your Elohim, will raise up for you a prophet like me, which is talking about Yeshua, from among your own people. You must listen to everything he tells you. Anyone who does not listen to him will be completely cut off from his people. Wow. I love the teaching on new wineskins or old wineskins that Yeshua did. There's so much that he taught that we just plainly don't understand and don't pay attention to, but hopefully we'll get better and better at doing that. All right, Hebrews 9:9-10 says, this is an illustration for the present time, indicating that the gifts and sacrifices being offered were not able to clear the conscience of the worshiper. They are only a matter of food and drink and various ceremonial washings, external regulations applying until the time of the new order. Okay, do you see that? He's talking about the Levitical priesthood was going to be there for a time until the new order. So this is something Matthew Nolan brought out last week. Okay, he said that what is happening in the Messianic Hebrew roots crowd is they cannot understand Hebrews. It doesn't fit within their theology because it is a religion. So it doesn't fit within their theology of one book, period. So they're beginning to talk about the fact they want to take Hebrews out of the canon. Well, Hebrews, you'd have to take Galatians out, and you have to keep going. I mean, like Nolan said, what is it going to end up taking Yeshua out of, the scriptures? Because you can't quite put them where you want them into your own theology. So Hebrews, Shaul is testifying there's going to be a time of a new order. Okay, so change to is not a change of, all right? So it is not, this is what Dr. David Perry says, and back to Melchizedek Future, page 94, he says, it is not a change of Torah to enact the change in Torah. All right, change has, in fact, always been right there in the pages of Torah. The truth of the matter is that to refuse the change that has always been there in Torah as prophecy is to diminish aught from Torah. All right, so you remember how he says, no jot nor tittle will be removed until, heaven and earth are removed, that sort of thing. So we're diminishing those jots and tittles if we're not looking at the jots and tittles. And the jot and tittle in Genesis 49, 49:10 says there's going to be there's an until clause. All right, so this until clause, what I want you to do is in your scriptures, in here, you're going to put a dedicated phrase. The phrase is until. And so you're going to write until, and then you're going to write those verses that I just went through. And you can go back when I post this. You can totally, I forgot my nice pen, so I don't like this pen. I want a different one to write in my new Bible, so my new scriptures. So I'm going to do this later. But the idea is to write down your dedicated phrase, and then you're going to write down how to cross-reference is you write down the very first mention of it. So where is it first mentioned? The until clause is mentioned in Genesis 49:10. So you're just going to write until, the until clause, Genesis 49:10. Then you're going to actually turn in your scriptures to Genesis 49:10. You're going to highlight Genesis 49:10. And then you're going to write in the side, in your margin, the next verse. The next verse. So then you're gonna write Hebrews. What was that? 10? No, 9:10 would be 49:10 and 9:10, I think. But anyway, you're gonna write the next verse, and then you go to that one and you highlight, and then you write the next verse, and you do the same for the next one. So you're gonna see a path, right? So you're gonna have all those. So you can get to when somebody says you're changing Torah, you can say no, I'm not, and then you can go and say hey, check this out. Did you see this? First Melchizedek contract. And I call them contracts because I look at it as like, let's say you're going to go buy a car and you are going to come into contract with the dealer to do this. Let's say the contract that you start with for this beautiful, wonderful car is you're going to get this contract that's pretty intense. Okay, so let's say you're going to get a contract for a car, and it's going to be $8,000 a month, and it's going to be, it's going to be interest rate of 50% or something stupid like that. All right, but let's say later you enter into, let's say that one gets dissolved, and then you get to enter into a new contract for that same car, only this contract is superior to the old one. What would that look like? Well, I mean, in my view, it would look like, I'm going to get this car for $8 a month, and it's going to be 0% interest, and in fact, I'm going to get a better car than I was with the first contract. That is a superior kind of contract to the same thing, as in the same idea, same vehicle idea. So you're going to get movement by entering these contracts, but you have one that's better than the other kind of thing. So when you look at my graph, one thing that I want to point out is that, I see, are we on the top? Nope. So on the top, right here, this purple bar goes all the way down this graph. All right, so do you see the arrow right there? The arrow to that graph. That's the way to keeping Yahovah's law, the law of love. Okay, so I'm just going to the graph, the arrow was, how do you say, broken. Back here. See if I can get back to it really fast. I know. Oh, there it is. Okay. That way, that first contract was broken. It didn't exist anymore. Once they broke it, they weren't able to keep the law of love, which goes forever, has been, goes forever, will go forever, because it is Yahovah's law of love. And why do I say that? I say that because, okay, Yahovah is love. Yahovah has existed since before time, and he will exist forever. He doesn't go away. He's forever. He's everlasting, right? And with him comes his character. His character is love. And to break love is to go do something opposite him. And when you break that law of love, as in you become self-centered and selfish, it breaks that cycle, that circle of love, receive, which is what he's all about. So when you break that and you're not being like him, a reflection of him, you're made in his image sort of thing, when you're not reflecting that, then you're breaking that law of love. And thus, the penalty is death. Okay, so I look at the first contract here that came 2,000 years basically into Earth's history as his first, it's him saying, okay, I am going to tell you what love looks like. So here's what love, because I am love. If you break love, then you die. I want you to live. So I'm going to show you what love looks like. I'm going to tell you what love looks like. This is how you love me. This is how you love others. This is how you love yourself. So here's Yehovah writing down for the very first time his law of love in human understanding. And at the time, he's actually writing it for the people at that time. So in this contract, you see some stuff about Hebrew slaves. We don't have Hebrew slaves right now. We don't have slaves. But how do you treat people that work for you? This sort of thing. My point is that he's like saying, this is what love looks like. I'm writing it down for you. So this is why this contract is super important, because you see the details of what it looks like to love according to him, not according to us. I mean, so many people say, well, you're good. You know what good is. You know what love. No, the only reason that I know what good is and know what I know what love is because Yehovah is love, and Yehovah has showed us what love looks like. Okay? All right. So here we go. The first Melchizedek contract or covenant was accepted by faith, because remember they're there at the base of the mountain and he's saying, will you? Before they even see it. They don't even know what is in this contract. And he says, will you obey? Will you be my come into this marriage arrangement with me? And they say, yes. It's a leap of faith. It's accepted by faith. All right? And it's called the Book of the Covenant. All right, so we're going to look at the defining characteristics of this priesthood and covenant contract. So the defining characteristics of this priesthood, just a few of them. All right, that he called them to be a nation of priests. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all the nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole world is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Exodus 19 through 19:6. Now, Yehovah doesn't use any words without having deep meaning. There's a reason why he uses words, right? And so in here you see a kingdom of priests, which is totally different than what you'll see a little bit later. What happens is they become a nation with priests instead of priests. So he called them originally to be a nation of royal priests. So he was going to take them out of Egypt, bring him to the base of Mount Sinai. This is how they were going to bless the world. This is what he meant when he told Abraham, your seed is going to bless the world, because he was going to raise up a kingdom of priests that were going to go out into the nations and bring everybody into this covenant of love so that he could save them. That's the point. He doesn't wish for anyone to die. All right. So another characteristic is this Melchizedek covenant or contract is found. Where is it found? Exodus 19:3 through, if you want to get really specific, 19:3 through 23:32. It's also mentioned in some other texts here that I have up online. And this is a Melchizedek priesthood covenant of promise. All right, so there are certain things that a covenant of promise in the scriptures needs. You need 5 things are required to be a covenant of promise. One is a proposal. Then there is an agreement. There is blood ratification. There's a covenant confirming meal. And a direct attachment to Abraham's promise covenant of Genesis 13. All right, so this is huge to unpack. The book unpacks this for you, but 5 things that are required to be a covenant of promise. The Genesis 15 with Abraham does, the book of the covenant does, the new covenant does, the marriage supper of the Lamb. So those are the 5 things required to be a covenant of promise. So this is definitely a covenant of promise. It's called the Book of the Covenant. All right, so Moses, then it says in Exodus 24:4, Moses then wrote down everything Yehovah had said, speaking of the Exodus 19:3 through 23:32. Then he took the book of the covenant, and it's the word Brit, and read it to the people. And they responded, we will do everything Yehovah has said, and we will obey. Okay, the scriptures attest to there being two very distinct and separate books, as Matthew pointed out in his response to the article, The Melchizedek II Book Theory Debunked. The Hebrew words Yehovah chose to use to describe each book, the Book of the Covenant and the Book of the Law, are very linguistically different. So you're going to see as we go through here the timeline, and I like to teach this as a story. So as we look through the timeline and look through the story, you're going to see the introduction of the Book of the Law, which is completely separate than the Book of the Covenant. All right, so the Book of the Covenant, the word there, as Nolan pointed out last week, is Strong's 1285, and he has had other, was using some very old Masoretic texts and stuff like that, but it's Brit or Berith. It's Book of the Covenant, all right? It means covenant or treaty or an allied relationship. The Book of the Law, when you come into that and you see that a little bit later, you don't even see that until after this Melchizedek covenant is given. It's Strong's 8451, and it is the word Torah. It means instructions, it means teaching, it means law, it means customs. These are two totally different words that Yehovah uses. And as I know, Papa, in the whole scriptures, he doesn't do things without a reason. He wouldn't, if he wanted those two books to be understood as the same book, he would have used the same word. He has two very, very distinct words here that he uses to describe two very distinct books. So linguistically, like Nolan was talking about, absolutely different books. This is what the scriptures testify to. All right, the Melchizedek promise, the priesthood promise to Israel in Exodus 19:5-6 was the Melchizedek priesthood. All right, this is what Dr. David Perry says. We are being called back into that same Melchizedek priesthood under a new and better contract. That's what my little addition there is. It is a new contract. All right, so the intention was to be a nation of priests, of royal priests. That is what is happening now with the work of Yahshua. We are being called into to becoming a nation of royal priests again. All right, so one other thing to note here is that there is no knowledge of a Levitical priesthood at that point. So when Israel is at the base of Mount Sinai, there is no knowledge of a Levitical priesthood. So Dr. David Perry writes, up until Exodus 27:21, the whole house of Israel, including Aaron and his sons, still knew nothing of a Levitical priesthood. All right? The Israelites had no knowledge of the added law until after they, along with Aaron, had broken the covenant and defiled themselves. So when they were standing there and Yehovah was basically saying, I want you to be a nation of royal priests, they weren't thinking Levitical, people. They were thinking Melchizedek, because Melchizedek, we see that in Abraham, meeting Abraham, they were familiar with the Melchizedek priesthood. They had no idea of the Levitical priesthood at that point. So when they entered that on faith, that covenant on faith, they were thinking Melchizedek. Okay. A blood-ratified covenant cannot be added to. All right, in Galatians 3:15, brothers, let me put this in human terms. Even a human covenant, once it is ratified, cannot be canceled or amended. All right, so we see when a covenant is sealed and done and it's been blood-ratified, it can't be changed. Cannot be changed. All right, so therefore, whatever law came after that was not part of the covenant, is the point. All right, this was a marriage-type arrangement between Yehovah and Israel at the base of Mount Sinai. It was a ketubah that he gave her in the wilderness in trade for her fidelity. It was how he was going to bring her into his family officially and give her his last name so that she could be an heir of his will and get free of Hasatan's claim. In Hebrews 9:16-17, it talks about this. All right, when Israel was standing there at the base of Mount Sinai, Yehovah was giving them a ketubah. It actually happened on Shavuot. And he was giving her a ketubah in trade for, he's like, this is what I'm going to do for you in trade for you being faithful to me. and he was wedding them. He was entering into a marriage type arrangement so that he could get them his last name. He could bring them into the family legally, so that Hasatan would be forced to let go of his claim on people. This is huge. This is absolutely huge. This is a big deal. This is why it's still a big deal to figure out how to get into this covenant, because in this covenant you're going to, through the work of the kinsman redeemer, you're going to get Yehovah's last name so that you can be a part of Yehovah's will as an heir, a legal heir to his will, which his will is to get you to the happily ever after and get Hasatan's claim off of you. All right? It's a huge deal. And to unpack this, it would take a long time. Like Nolan said last week, this takes time, totally. So I'm kind of running through it real fast, but and forgive me if I'm assuming too much about what you know, what you don't know, but I'm assuming that you can go back and redo this, or that you can research this as well. I think Nolan's got some great teachings on it. Dr. David Perry's book, both his books are awesome. That will help as well. And I'm going to continue to try to figure out how to communicate this well. All right. So the first Melchizedek contract was created with a fault. Did you know this? Have you been able to, you see this in the Brit Hadashavik, have you been able to reconcile this? In Hebrews 8:6-7, it says, "Now, however, Yahshua has received a far superior ministry, just as the covenant he mediates is far superior and is founded on better promises. For the first covenant had been if the first covenant had been without fault, no place would have been sought for a second." Okay, so if there was no problem with the very first contract, there would have been no reason to be pursuing a second contract. So, did you see this? So what is the fault? Back to the Melchizedek Future by Dr. David Perry. And if you buy these books, and the other one is called Covenants of Promise by Dr. David Perry. If you buy them, I love it for you to go to Lulu and buy. You can go to our website and just click on a link. As you see him scrolling at the top, you'll see Back to Melchizedek Future scrolling at the top of my website. And go to Lulu to buy them, because Amazon just is horrible. It's on Amazon, but Amazon's horrible to authors. So Matthew Nolan teaches and runs Torah to the tribes. So I believe that he's definitely a voice piece of this movement. That a lot of his phrases and lingo and everything, he echoes Dr. David Perry. And so do I. And I have my own lingo, legal bride and contract and different things like that I'm adding to this understanding. And Nolan has his own systematic covenant theology, I think is one of his terms that he uses to describe the study of this. But again, I believe that Nolan and David were anointed to talk on this. Anointed to teach this, not anointed to teach everything. Okay, so when you go there, please be careful. But yes, he's definitely, hands down, understands this change, and very, very eloquent with how he communicates it. All right, I think, good. Yeah, definitely check him out. I will try to put a link here to his studies. I think it's some of his very first videos that he did. You'll like them. All right, the first Melchizedek contract did not come with the indwelling of the Ruach HaKodesh. That was the fault. That was the fault in the very first contract. That contract did not come with the indwelling of the Ruach. This is what made the new contract, the new covenant, superior to this Melchizedek contract. That's the only difference between the two contracts, was this indwelling of the Ruach, which made it superior, which means, it's easy. The burden is light. All right. Also, this book that Moses wrote down was placed inside the Ark of the Covenant. Very different from the outside of the Ark of the Covenant. Okay. Now, in the first month of the second year, on the first day of the month, which is interesting, it happened on Rosh Hashanah. On the second year, they were out in the wilderness, I guess. The tabernacle was erected. Then he took the testimony and put it into the ark. Exodus 40:17-20. So at this point, they were already under Levitical priesthood, because they had already committed the sin and adultery. So that was placed inside. This is not the book of the law. Okay, the book of the covenant, book of the law, it's not the book of the law. So let's go forward. All right, we're back to our big picture. We're on the timeline, and we're going to scream forward here. So the contract breach. So they actually committed adultery. They broke the contract they had just made with Yahweh 40 days earlier with the golden calf incident. Exodus 32, there it is. 32:24. I knew it was close. All right, some details of this. They are no longer eligible. Oh, I totally didn't spell that right, did I? No, they're no longer eligible to be a nation of royal priests. Once they broke the covenant, they were no longer in set apart sanctification and were no longer eligible to be Melchizedek priests in a Melchizedek priesthood. Okay, Dr. David Perry, page 107. So at the golden calf incident, they ruined their chances of being a nation of priests in a royal priesthood. So the concession that Yahweh made, instead of annihilating them, remember how Moses had to beg for them, to beg Yahweh to not destroy Israel? Yahweh made a concession basically to plan B. So he had to figure out some other way to get Israel from that moment to when he could get Yahshua here at the appointed time. All right. Page 109 and back to the Melchizedek future. What started out to be a national Melchizedek priesthood intent became a covenant breach tribal Levitical priesthood reality. It's a blot right there to say. A concession granted by a merciful Yehovah in lieu of complete annihilation. All right, so in lieu of complete annihilation, he says, I'm going to have some mercy and I'm going to give you a tribal Levitical priesthood instead of the royal one. So now you are going to be a nation with priests. Okay, so at that point they had added law, temporary Levitical priesthood. It was imposed law for transgression. It's called the book of the law. Okay, so some of the characteristics of this book and priesthood. All right, so now they were not a nation of priests, but now they were a nation with priests. All right. So let's look at, back to Melchizedek future, page 43 says, but the people broke the covenant by making the golden calf, including Aaron, which I found out in the New Testament, in the Brit Hadashah in the New Testament, I found where, is it that? No, excuse me, in Deuteronomy, Moses talks about how he begged Yahweh to not destroy Aaron for what he did. All right, but the people broke the covenant by making the golden calf. They defiled themselves and broke the covenant and were no longer eligible to be the plan A nation of Melchizedek priests. They would now be a plan B with Levitical priests. So sad. But that's what happened. I really believe that they could have lasted a long time under the Melchizedek priesthood without messing up. Had they been wholeheartedly devoted to Jehovah as a nation corporately, I don't think it had to be 40 days later. I mean, that covenant at some point had to get broken because it had an attached death position to Yahshua walking through those pieces back in Exodus, or back in Genesis 15 on behalf of Abraham and his descendants, and Yahweh had to, get it so that the death of Yahshua was going to pay for not only the breaking of that covenant, but also to pay for original sin. So at some point, it had to be broken, but I don't think it had to be broken that soon. I think they could have lived for a long time with enjoying the benefits and that came with that initial covenant, that royal covenant. Okay, this extra law was added because of their transgression against the covenant. Okay, why then was the law given? Galatians 3:19 says, it was added because of transgressions until the arrival of the seed to whom the promise referred. Okay, so the seed, the promise referred back in the story of Chava and Adam back there, it was all about Yahshua, and until Yahshua came, this was going to be added because of transgressions. It wasn't covenant. Okay? So you see how the two books are, this is still witnessing for us and teaching us that these are two separate books, because the book of the covenant was not given because of transgression. The book of the covenant was given because of their faith. It was accepted. It wasn't imposed. It was a covenant. It was a ketubah. It was a marriage type arrangement. It was not a added imposed law, okay? This added imposed law, the Levitical law, was placed on the outside of the Ark of the Covenant. Very big point. And I don't know how you can argue with this one. After Moses finished writing in a book the words of the law from beginning to end, he gave this command to the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh. He said, quote, and this is in Deuteronomy 31:26, take this book of the law, remember he's using a different word there, Torah, he's not using the word Brit. Take this book of the law and place it beside the Ark of the Brit, Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh your Elohim. There it will remain as a witness against you. What is it witnessing? It's there because they broke the covenant. So they broke the covenant, and as a remember, something to remember that by, to say it's witnessing against you, is here's this added law. And it's going to sit on the side of the covenant. And Nolan talks about it. It's in a little pocket. I don't know. It's just on the side of the covenant. It's on the outside. So you have a difference between the outside and the inside. You know, there's two different things. So inside the Ark of the Covenant is the covenant. Duh. It's the Ark of the Covenant. But on the outside is the law that was added for transgressing the covenant. I think it's a no-brainer, but that's okay. I want to teach this. I want you to feel it's a no-brainer too. All right, this was damage control. This was Yahweh doing damage control. This is prescriptive law for sick people. Okay, they're not qualified. They're not ready to be this nation of priests because they got some things that they need, which is the Ruach HaKodesh. And that can't be given until Yahshua comes and leaves. And then the Ruach comes with a new covenant. So this is prescriptive law, as David Perry talks about it. It wasn't agreed to. It was imposed because of transgressions. So, and it doesn't have all the 5 things that would make it a covenant of promise. There's no blood ratification. There's no proposal. There's no agreement. There's no blood ratification. There's no covenant confirming meal. And it doesn't have any ties to Abraham. Abraham had no idea about it. It ties to Melchizedek with Abraham. Okay, here's the other thing, and what I was going to talk about earlier. One has to keep all of it. Those who keep it are under a curse. Okay, so in Galatians 3:10 it says, all who rely on observing the law are under a curse, for it is written, cursed is everyone who does not continue to do everything written in the book of the law. There are no curses in the covenant, people. No curses in the covenant. The Melchizedek covenant, Exodus 19-24, there's no curses. But there are curses related to the book of the law. And you're cursed if you don't keep everything. So you have to keep it all. So when you say you're Torah observant, you're not. There's no way you can be Torah observant. Torah observant means you're keeping the whole thing. You can't pick and choose. You can't pick and choose and say, well, I'm going to keep this, but I'm not going to keep this because it's inconvenient for me, or the temple's not there, or because whatever. I mean, you can't pick and choose. If you're going to keep all of it, or you're going to keep it and you're calling yourself Torah observant, you have to keep it all, which is impossible. You can't do that, and you don't want to be doing that right now, ever again, because Yahshua was the sacrifice for all time. So let's remember who our Messiah is, and really try to figure out what it was that he changed. And this is the one law point that the Christians get. They know something changed. And it's the one law point that they're right on. Something did change. What they don't understand is it didn't change like they think it did, as in everything done away with, all law done away with. It's like, what law? So we have to figure that out. All right, here we go. We're back down to, we're going to look at the new Melchizedek contract is prophesied, all right? In Jeremiah 31:31-34, we see that this new contract that was going to come, the better contract, the superior contract, the new Melchizedek contract, was going to come. I guess let's just read it. A new contract between Yehovah and Israel. So in you all know this, Jeremiah 31:31-34. The days are coming, declares Yehovah, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. This is for both. This is for the whole house. It will not be like the covenant I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they did not remain faithful to my covenant. Sad story. And I turned away from them, declares Yehovah. This is the covenant I will establish with the people of Israel after that time, declares Yehovah. I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. I will be their Elohim, and they will be my people. No longer will they teach their neighbor or say to one another, know Yahweh, because they will all know me, from the least to the greatest, for I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more. So I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. What law are we talking about? Very, very important. And see, I haven't finished this one, but I want you to remember the conversation we had, the teaching I did a couple of Shabbats ago about the new wine for new wineskins. This is the new wine. This is the new covenant, the new Melchizedek contract. This priesthood is the new wine. And people that have drunk from the Levitical priesthood, who would think they are being Torah observant, who are all about this, the Levitical Aaronic laws, they're the old wineskins that Yeshua was talking about, the ones that, aren't going to be accepting of the new wine. They don't want it. They're going to say the old wine was better. So the idea, which we studied into this the other week, the new wineskins meaning young, ones that haven't drunk at this other priesthood. Hebrews 8 through 13, it says, by calling this covenant, or contract as I say it, new, he has made the first one, or first contract, obsolete. And what is obsolete and outdated will soon disappear. So this one replaces the old one. All right. Here we go. We're going to go forward here into Yeshua the Messiah. So he's the Lamb of Yahweh. He's the flaming torch of Genesis 15. He's the kinsman redeemer. He's the Kohen Gadol of the royal priesthood. He's the bridegroom. He's earth's rightful king, the son of Yehovah Elohim, the light of the world, the way to life, the bread of life, our rabbi, our friend, our brother. Oh. I mean, we got to figure out what it is that he is doing, what he changed, what his work accomplished, right? Yeshua rendered the Levites jobless by taking over at the appointed time. All right, this is one of the reasons they were so mad. They knew he was going to take over. They knew he was bringing a change in priesthoods, which would give them no job. They had it great. They had control over the people. They were having, this was their income. This is how they had power. And he was going to strip them all of that. He was like, he's going to take over. I mean, this was the change that is provided for in Torah. All right, Yahweh makes Yeshua his high priest and king in his royal order, the Melchizedek order, the Melchizedek order, and priesthood. So in Hebrews 5:6, 27, 15, etc., it says in 5:6, it says, others became a priest without an oath. But he, Yeshua, became a priest with an oath when Yehovah said to him, Yehovah has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever. No Aaronic priest, no Levite priest became a priest because of an oath. They became a priest because of their genealogy. Yeshua became a priest because of the oath that Yehovah gave. Psalms 110:4 again, Yehovah has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. I mean, there's your witnesses right there. Oh, I just love him. All right, Yeshua is the mediator of the new Melchizedek contract. I'm calling the new covenant the new Melchizedek contract for clarification. But for this reason, Yeshua is the mediator of a new covenant, that those who are called may receive the promised eternal inheritance now that he has died as a ransom to set them free from the sins committed under the first covenant. Distinction. This is called talking about the golden calf incident. So that was Hebrews 9:15. But the ministry of Yeshua has received is as superior to theirs as the covenant of which he is mediator is superior to the old one. And it is founded on better promises. Hebrews 8:6. So, I mean, you just open up Hebrews, and with this understanding, when you understand these are two different books, and you understand the Melchizedek priesthood intent of Yehovah, and you understand what Yeshua's work accomplished, and then you read Hebrews, it makes complete sense. I mean, Hebrews is full. Shaul is trying to unpack this change. That's one reason Peter says he's so hard to understand, is because he's trying to unpack this change, and in their minds, they really are struggling with this. And frankly, Israel right now in this movement is struggling with this. They're having a really hard time wrapping their brain around it because they want to appease the Jews, our brother Judah, who is in error. Those who are following or in Judaism, they're in error, and they're trying to appease them. So they're just bringing, like Nolan was saying, you're bringing Jesus into Judaism. It doesn't work. All right. Let's keep going. Yahshua was not from the tribe of Levi, but of Judah, right? So in Hebrews 7:11, it says, now if perfection was through the Levitical priesthood, for on the basis of it the people received the law, what further need was there for another priest to rise according in the order of Melchizedek and not to be designated according to the order of Aaron? Wow. Hebrews 7:13-14 says, he of whom these things are said belonged to a different tribe, and no one from that tribe has ever served at the altar, for it is clear that our Lord descended from Judah. And in regard to that tribe, Moses said nothing about priests. I just think if you just start reading Hebrews, it's going to change your life if you don't know about this already. If you do, then it's going to affirm things for you. He becomes a priest on power, not ancestry, like we're talking about, and his life. And Hebrews 7:15-16 says, and what we have said is even more clear. If another priest like Melchizedek appears, one who has become a priest not on the basis of regulation as to his ancestry, but on the basis of the power of an indestructible life. So the priesthood that Yahshua is in charge of, and the reason it's because of his indestructible life. He sits beside Yehovah. No Levite sits beside Yehovah. It's Yahshua that sits beside Yehovah. In Hebrews 8:1-2, he says, we do have such a high priest who sat down at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven, and who serves in the sanctuary, the true tabernacle, set up by Yehovah and not by man. Don't look at these too closely. I have tons of typos. I'm doing that tired. Okay, he was given a permanent priesthood. In Hebrews 7:24, it says, but because Yahshua lives forever, he has a permanent priesthood. That's part of the understanding of the word Melchizedek, and understanding the Melchizedek back with Abraham, and how Shaul impacts that. It's permanent. It's permanent because Yehovah is permanent. Because it's not something made by man. It's Yehovah's. All right, and he is able to save. And I'm just going to read one of these. Hebrews 7:25 says, therefore, he is able to save completely those who come to Elohim through him, because he always lives to intercede for them. Such a high priest meets our needs. Unlike other high priests, he does not need to suffer sacrifices day in and day out. He sacrificed their sins once and for all when he offered himself. The law appoints as priests men who are weak, but the oath which came after the law appointed the Son, who has been made perfect forever. But now he has appeared once for all at the end of the ages to do away with sin by the sacrifice of himself. Messiah was sacrificed once to take away the sins of many people, and he will appear a second time, not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting for him. Oh my. Levi bows to Yahshua. Levi bows to the Melchizedek. So Levitical bows to the Melchizedek. So because in Hebrews 7:9-10, he talks about, he's talking about the Melchizedek that meets Abraham. And a lot of people think that Melchizedek is Seth. Or Shem, sorry, not Seth. Not Seth. Shem, I always get those two mixed up. Is Shem, because Abraham and Shem and Noah were contemporaries. All right? So it says, one might even say that Levi, who collects the 10th, paid the 10th through Abraham, because when Melchizedek met Abraham, Levi was still in the body of his ancestor. So the idea that everything is subservient to Melchizedek. Our Kohen Gadol, calling believers in him back into the royal priesthood. Okay, Yahshua has made us kings and priests to his Elohim and his Father, Revelation 1:6. And that's talking about the wedding feast of the Lamb, I believe. And 1 Peter 2:9 says, which is a very famous verse in the Melchizedek movement, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. Everything connect. I mean, this helps I believe that when I get this for you to be able to show your friends and family, I hope you show it to your Christian friends, because I really believe that Christians are going to get this. It's going to give them the best chance at understanding this, because we're going to talk about the two ditches. This is the narrow path, and I think they're going to the change. Yeah, they don't want to listen to Messianics, because Messianics don't believe in a change, but they know there's a change. So I think if we can help them divide the word of truth and figure out what change actually occurred, they're going to get eyes to see. The Ruach will be able to, will serve the Ruach in helping her get them eyes to see and ears to hear. Okay, so what change did Shiloh, the Messiah, bring? Remember the prophecy that Jacob gave concerning a change that would take place in Genesis 49:10? Yeah. So what changed? All right, here's the two very, very, very gold verses. These are golden. In Colossians, let's go to the bottom one. Deuteronomy 31:26 says, this is the book of the law. We've touched on this. You will place it beside the Ark of the Covenant. There it will remain as a witness against you for breaking it. Remember back in Exodus, you broke it? Well, here, you're going to put this on the outside, and you're going to be under this law, and it's going to be burdensome, but you're going to be under this one. In place of me annihilating you, you're going to be under this one, and it's going to witness and testify against you for the next 1,000, 1,500 years, whatever it is, until Yahshua comes, till I'm able to bring the Shiloh. Then look at Colossians 2:14. 2:14 says, the handwritten laws of ordinances that was set against us, or not agreed to, and we didn't agree to, was nailed to the cross. All right, so what was nailed to the cross? What was set against us was nailed to the cross. Was the covenant set against us? No. No. The covenant was for us. The covenant was going to give us blessings. It was going to give us inheritance. It was going to give us life. It was going to be the way by which we kept the royal law of love that is eternal, because Yahweh is eternal and he is love, right? But what was set against us was this, this extra law that came with the Levitical priesthood. This is what was set against us, that it was nailed to the cross. This is what you have to divide the word of truth to find out what was nailed to the cross and what remains. Because there is something that remains, and we see what remains as in the Melchizedek priesthood, the Melchizedek covenant law, and all the Melchizedek issues that are with that, which we'll talk about later. There's Melchizedek issues that you find in the law, in the Levitical law, okay? All right, so back to Melchizedek future, page 139. Only the book of the law was nailed to the cross. The 10 Commandments were inside the Ark of the Covenant, and arguably the Ark contained the entire book of the Covenant, because after all, it is called the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so when somebody says to you, well, it's only the 10 Commandments inside the Ark of the Covenant, probably not. Probably we're talking, I would have to say, no, it's not just the 10 Commandments, because the whole covenant is there, and you see the entrance into that covenant in 19:3 basically, and you see the exit out of that covenant in Exodus 23 at the end there towards 24. So you have this proposal, acceptance, blood ratification, covenant confirming meal. That's all like the boundaries of this covenant, and so this is all on the tablets of stone. Yahweh has sworn and will not. Oh, and yes, by the way, when Moses went up to get the second table of stones. Remember that when Yahweh said, "You bring your tablets for me to write on." Is that not amazing? Cool. Because what is that? What is that a shadow picture of? It's a shadow picture of us bringing our hearts the next time he makes this covenant with us, the new covenant. The next time he writes that, it's on our hearts. That's what that whole thing represented when he said, Moses, you bring up your own tablets this time. It's about bringing our own hearts. This is what the new covenant is all about, because he's going to, through the Ruach HaKodesh, the indwelling, he's going to write his law, the law of love, which he spelled out in Exodus 19-24 on our hearts. Okay. Oh yes, a change in law. I just skipped through that. Therefore, when in Hebrews it talks about when there's a change in priesthood, there is also a change in law. All right, that's really important. The feasts are part of the book of the covenant. They are first seen in the book of the covenant, Sherry. They are expounded upon later in the book of the law. So what you have is a Melchizedek issue. So it's anything that is in the book of the covenant or prior book of the covenant, which food laws, we know that Noah knew about them. Those sort of things are Melchizedek issues that we see more description, more understanding given in the rest of the Torah. So as far as the feast days, you see the three mentioned in the covenant. It's Exodus, I think it's 22, but you just read 19-24. You'll see it in there. It's beautiful. It talks about Shabbats. It talks about the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It talks about the Feast of Shavuot, Feast of Weeks. It talks about Feast of Ingathering, which is Sukkot. And Passover was something prior. They did it in Israel or in Egypt, remember? So Passover was initiated and set up back there. So and so with Shabbat, the weekly Shabbat was at creation. So you see these beautiful Melchizedek issues that the Melchizedek priesthood understood prior to getting to the base of Mount Sinai. They were passing this down orally from firstborn to firstborn. This is why, the idea of firstborn was so important, because with that, they were getting the priesthood. They were getting anointed as the priest for that family, that tribe or whatnot, and with it came privileges and land and all this other stuff. So yeah, that was really point. So yeah, it's a good question. Okay, just real quick, second Melchizedek contract formally established by Yahshua at Shavuot when he sent the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, so that is formally when it was set up. There's a proposal, ask and I will come, seek and you will find, this sort of thing. He'll knock on our door kind of thing. That's the proposal. Then there's the covenant confirming meal, which is the Lord's Supper sort of thing. You got the wine and the bread. You have the blood ratification with Yeshua's blood washing us clean. You have a direct connection to Abrahamic covenant because he was the flaming torch going through that covenant making that in Genesis 15. I think I must be missing something. Defining characteristics of this royal priesthood. It is superior. It is the superior contract to the old one. Hebrews 7:18-19 says the former regulation is set aside because it was weak and useless. I think I already read this. For the law made nothing perfect, and a better hope is introduced by which we draw near to Elohim, and it was not without an oath. Direct connection to it being established back in Genesis. Hebrews 8:6-7 says, but the ministry Yeshua has received is superior to theirs, as the covenant of which he's a mediator is superior to the old one. The food issue, being kosher, and the feast all fit into the Melchizedek. So you're being moved, Sherry, directly into the Melchizedek understanding. I love that because I think the Ruach is, when the Ruach moves on us individually to move us into this, it's so beautiful. This is just confirming that this is superior, absolutely. Those who join will be a nation of royal priests, as in 1 Peter 2:9 talks about, new wine for new night, we talked about that, and will be known by our love. Okay, so hopefully here, I got 10 more minutes. I'm going to go into what I really wanted to get to today is how does this priesthood work? Because like I say before, all this head knowledge means nothing unless you know how to walk it out until it becomes heart knowledge, right? So, with every choice, we either operate in this priesthood or not. Okay, so I'm going to explain this. Entry point of this priesthood is circumcision of the heart, okay? And that is basically the indwelling of the Ruach HaKodesh. And I am going to suggest, oh good, I got a call right there, so I had to finish. Okay, so I'm going to suggest that this happens daily, not once in your life. So people who say, well, I was saved at such and such a time. No, it doesn't work like that. This is a growing process. You're working out your salvation. You're working into perfection kind of thing. This isn't, I accept Jesus Christ into my heart and Savior, therefore I'm saved. No, it doesn't work like that. The indwelling of the Ruach doesn't just show up and never leave either. The indwelling of the Ruach is something that you invite every single day. You get centered every day. Yeshua himself went out every morning to get centered in Yehovah, to probably invite the Ruach to make connection with his Father so he could go through the rest of his day as a servant and as, the lamb. And I already went through the how it is a covenant of promise. The new contract is a covenant of promise covenant, excuse me. But the priesthood, this is what I want you to kind of look at here. This is my understanding of the priesthood. The priesthood is like a river, okay? It exists whether you exist or not. It exists whether you're in it or not, okay? I believe that the royal priesthood is like a river, and because it's eternal and it's not dependent on human beings. Okay, the Levitical priesthood is dependent on human beings running it, but the Melchizedek priesthood is different. The goal, our goal, is to be in it or operate in it more and more every day until you live there, like our high priest does, Yeshua. So the idea is, I know that the analogy breaks down at some point, but the idea is that you want to learn how to operate in this river. It's how to swim it, how to maneuver on it, how to float it. And it's not something that you just know how to do right out of the bat. You don't just waltz right into the most holy place and say, here I am, Yehovah. You learn, and you learn from people who've gone before you. You learn from observing Yehovah, you learn from Yeshua, and you learn from eating of him. And experience is going to give it to you. So I believe the priesthood is like a river, and it's there or it's not. So you're not in the river, like the doggies are not in the river, or you are in the river right here. So it's not a once a priest, always a priest sort of thing. It's more like training to be one. And the more training you get and the more you're in the river, the more you are a part of the river, the more you understand how the river works, the more you are operating as a Melchizedek priest. Okay? So when we are doing or living by the rules of the priesthood as defined by Yeshua's life, because he already defined what that river looks like, then we are operating in it. When our choices reflect otherwise, then we're not. So the idea is I'm either in the river operating in this choice I'm making, or I'm not. So I'm going to either operate in the Melchizedek understanding, in the royal priesthood, as somebody who's reflecting Yeshua well, with this choice, with this problem, with this issue, whatever it is in front of me, or I'm not. So it's not me. It's going to become part of me. It's going to live in my heart the more I'm in that river. So do you understand that? This is crucial to understand how to operate in this. 1 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Messiah, the new creation has come. The old one is gone. The new is here. All right. So the idea is beautiful because you're going to get into the rhythm of the feast. And unleavened bread is the time of year when Yehovah wants to talk to you and to me about eating of Yeshua. We have to eat of Yeshua and get him in us, as in, this is the river. We're going to eat of him so that we know how to float in this river. We know how to swim in this river of the Melchizedek priesthood. All right, 1 John 2:5-6. This is how we know we are in him. Whoever claims to live in him must live as Yeshua did. Okay, so this is the idea. It's like when you operate like Yeshua, you are operating in the Melchizedek priesthood. When you're not, you're not. It's eternal. It's outside of you. It isn't, it's not something dependent on you like the Levitical priesthood is. Hi. You saw that. All right, 1 Corinthians 11:1. Follow my example as I follow the example of Messiah. All right, that's Shaul saying, hey, you don't know how to do it? Follow me, watch me. So if you find somebody that you trust, who's been walking this for a long time, and just, do what they do. Ephesians 2:10. For we are Yahweh's handiwork, created in Yeshua, the Messiah, to do good works, which Elohim prepared us in advance to do for him. So what is those good works? We find out what those good works are by understanding the covenant and the laws that go with that covenant. That covenant making thing. We're going to find that in Exodus, when we initially see that Melchizedek contract. Ephesians 5:1-2. Follow Yah's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love. The covenant of love, the everlasting, walk in his way. That's the law. That's the law. Just as Messiah loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to Yahweh. And John 14:12. Truly, truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will also do the works that I am doing. And he will even do greater things than these because I am going to the Father. How that is possible, I'll never know. How can we ever do better things, greater things than him? I don't have any idea. But he said so. So somehow that is true. The idea is to believe in him, get him in you, so you can float that river. All right, but just a couple more things. We're going to look at the two ditches real quick. I wish you could see this all, but it says, must keep all the law. We've got two ditches on the, we've got one path, the narrow path, and two ditches. One of the ditches is the Messianic Hebrew roots Judaism idea that says we must keep all the law. Messianics are under an illusion if they think they can keep the entire law. Galatians 3:10 again says, all who rely on observing the law are under a curse, for it is written, cursed is everyone who does not continue to do everything written in the book of law. And you can't do everything. You can't. You're not supposed to. Yeshua was the one-time sacrifice for all times. If you start sacrificing animals again, you are in direct violation of the work of Yeshua. You are slapping him in the face. I knew people that were saying they were believers in Yeshua and slaughtering a Pesach lamb on their front lawn. It's crazy. All right. Page 138, back to the Melchizedek future. There are no curses in the book of the covenant. Paul was speaking directly to the book of the law and could not have possibly been talking about the book of the covenant. Messianics, Hebrew roots, Judaism, they are all in violation of that until clause that we found in Genesis 49:10, which is in the Torah. They're in violation of that because the until clause prophesied an impending change, and they're ignoring that change. So they're ignoring the mandated change in Torah. 2 Corinthians 3:11, if that which is done away with is glorious, much more glorious is that which remains. And let's figure out what remains. This is what we're talking about here. Ignores the Messianic Hebrew roots And Judaism ignores the work of Yahshua by saying that nothing changed after he came, when it is clear something did change. So claiming to be Torah observant is fiction. It can't happen. Impossible. You can't pick and choose the laws to keep and ones that grace will cover you whenever it is inconvenient for you, as Nolan was talking about last week. All right, and the other ditch we're going to talk about is there's no law. So there's the ditch of Christianity on the other side of the road and the narrow path. Christians are under the illusion that says there's no law anymore at all. So Hebrews 7:12 says, for when there's a change of the priesthood, there must also be a change of law. The idea is to divide the word of truth to figure out what change in law, what law that is. And to look at Jeremiah 31 in the New Covenant to say what law is he going to write on our hearts. Very important. And then you can read this Romans 6:1-4. It's good. It's what shall we say? Shall we continue to sin so that grace is increased? By no means. How can we die to sin and live it any longer? So he's not saying there's no law. So Christianity ignores the fact that there is a law in the New Covenant, but we have to figure out what law is that. It ignores what Yeshua reestablished by saying that he did away with all the law. It doesn't divide the word of truth to discover what law was done away with and what law remains. So it's heresy, just like the other ditch is heresy. All right, so the point, I want you to remember the point of all of this. The point is Yahovah loves you, and Yahovah wants to get you to the great wedding feast of the Lamb. He wants you to have the happily ever after. That's his goal. That's what they've been doing, is trying to get the path to you so that you can actually choose life, that you have the clear choice in front of you. Do you want the happily ever after? That's with Yahovah forever, which is full of good things. I wouldn't know why you wouldn't want that. Or do you want the other path that just leads to destruction? And he's going to give you what you want. He's going to solidify you, okay? For Yahovah so loved the world. You know that one, so I'm going to go ahead and let you look at that text in John 3. So that's the point. I want to go over one other thing today before I close. I want to look at the word narrow. So Yeshua said in Matthew 17:13-14, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. And many enter through it, but small is the gate and narrow the way that leads to life, and only a few find it. Beware of false prophets. In the next sentence, he's saying, beware of false prophets. So let's look at the word narrow right there. I just find this amazing. This word narrow, it means compressed. It's the numbers in Strong's 2346. It means I make narrow. I make narrow. He makes narrow. Persecute. Press hard. I make narrow strictly by pressure. I press upon. I persecute. I afflict. I crowd. I suffer. You suffer affliction. Oh my gosh! It just opens up so much. I mean, the amount of affliction that you find when you start walking this Melchizedek understanding is nuts, because the Messianic crowd does not want to give up their control. They want the Levitical priesthood. They don't want to divide the word of truth to find out what this change is, because they feel like it changes Torah. And so anyway, point being is that this way, this Melchizedek way, this narrow path is afflicted. So if you feel afflicted, my friend, oh my, that's the narrow path. The narrow path says he is going to afflict. He is going to bring the pressure. This narrow path is going to weed out, the tares from the wheat. This narrow path, crazy. Right? This is a breath of fresh air. This is the truth, and it's going to give new life to you. It's the new wine and for the new wineskins, and if you're receiving it, then you've got that new wineskin of a heart. All right, so Matthew Ward is somebody that I used to love to listen to, and this is a song called To the King.